just go to item 8 now, and this is to make private plan change 43 at McLaughlin's Quarry operative, and this is end of process. The motions are on the screen. Councillor Collins and Filipina, would you like to move or second these so that we can put them before the meeting, please? Councillor Collins or Filipina, would you like to move and second? Okay, is there another member that would do so?
I'll do it, Chair.
Happy to.
Shane Henderson here.
Lots of silence. Can you, it's very difficult to identify who it is by voice. Can you just let us know your name, please, councillors?
Councillor Henderson here, I'll move.
Councillor Henderson moved. Do I have a second, please?
I'm happy to second, Kathy.
Councillor Kathy Casey, thank you. So the motions are before us to make it operative, but I will now hand over to Craig Cairncross, Team Leader at Planning, and I think in support also is the General Manager of Plans and Places, John Dogood. Craig, in your hands. I think this is relatively straightforward. End of process.
Yes, that's right. Good morning, Mr. Chair and councillors. So, yes, after quite a process in terms of processing the private plan change 43, which involved 28 hectares of land that was formerly quarry zone land at the very end of McLaughlin's Road, near the Wirri Oil Terminal and the prisons, the women's prison down the end there. So I went to a hearing after being notified. There was something like 28 submissions, and went to a panel of independent commissioners, Greg Hill chairing, Mark Farnsworth and Peter Rayburn. And obviously at the hearing, the submissions were heard. A number of the submitters turned up to speak, and we're now past the appeal period, which was the 5th of August, and no appeals have been received, and therefore the relevant parts of the unitary plan can be made operative as set out in the decision. So, yeah, happy to describe further or take questions.
Thank you, Craig. I do have a question from Member Tauhenere. Member Tauhenere, you have a question.
Morena tātou. Just on the Māori impact statement, is that there were around 10 mana whenua groups
Yes. Yep.
had issues. In response, the applicant proposed significant changes to the plan change, including the protection of view shafts and provisions for the appropriate recognition and consideration of cultural values, but it's not clear from the report itself if those mana whenua groups were satisfied that the amendments had been addressed, and also noting that Ngāti Tiata Waiōhua actually remain opposed to the but within the plan change 43 area.
Right. Yes. So in terms of, there was quite a lot of work done by the applicant, I think, following notification to get around the submitters and, I guess, try and settle their concerns. And a lot of effort was put into trying to talk to Ngāti Tiata and Tamauho and various others. In the end, I think Te Akata Waiōhua provided the most input, and so ended up making a number of suggestions to the plan change, I guess, in order to ensure that elements were introduced into the plan change, into the planning provisions, which satisfied what they thought was warranted. And at the actual hearing itself, as I recall, Ngāti Tiata turned up, but Te Akata Waiōhua didn't, and I don't think any of the others, Edith Tuimata turned up. So there was just the two representatives turned up, Te Akata themselves didn't. So I think the applicant did quite a bit of work, and quite a bit of change was made as a result of that liaison. It seemed to be a feature, came through strongly in the hearing.
Well, I mean, I'm concerned that I think isn't reflected very well in the report. You know, I don't want to be too pedantic, but if people are happy, then the report should say so. If they're not, I'm just, it's a bit ambivalent either way. And I think we need to sharpen our act up, just in case along the way somebody says, no, that did not happen, and we have to go through it again. And also noting that Ngāti Te Ata Waiohua actually are still opposed to the development. It's not reflected in the report. So that's all. I suppose for future reference, that if work is done, then it needs to be articulated better in the report.
Oh, yes.
That's all.
Oh, yes.
Kia ora.
Yep.
That's a fair point. It does need to be reflected accurately under the Māori impact statement. We'll take that away again, Member Henare, and I will make sure I follow up on your behalf. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Councillor Pipakoon, please. Your question.
Tēnā koe, Mr. Chair. Ngā mihi mahana kia koutou katoa. Just checking you can hear and see me okay?
We hear and see.
Thank you. I have a pārtai in relation to the financial implication. Let me just get the right, here we are. Financial implications, paragraph 23. And in the same way that the climate impact statement has been written, there might not be an impact from this actual decision, but there must be a bigger context of, well, this is my question. What are the implications of a plan change in terms of rezoning land? Is there a net gain to council in terms of future rates? Are there additional costs in terms of infrastructure? And is it a windfall for the applicant in terms of the rezoning of land that's a kind of a gift from society to the landowner? So I would have thought there's quite a few implications, and I know we've done a few of these before, and I usually hone in on the climate impact statement, but I just feel that we're missing a big chunk of information about the future financial implications, and I just wonder, is there anybody who can speak to that? Kia ora.
It's a fair question. So there's no cost to council in terms of it being a private plan change, so that's all recoverable, but you're referring to the consequential financial implications of going from quarry zone to mixed-use business light industry zone and then some open space as well, and trying to get a picture of what those financial implications are.
Well, hopefully my question was clear, and I don't need it to be paraphrased if there is an officer who can respond. Thank you, okay. Mr. Chair.
That's why I am paraphrasing it to make it clear. Thank you. Craig, are you able to respond?
It's an interesting one, this one. This is half of the plan change area has actually been developed for a while now. So you've got kind of the northern half, the precinct A and the precinct B and C. And so if one drives out there, you can sort of see industrial buildings which have been on site for, 10 years plus, but it still had that zoning, quarry zoning. And then on the other side of the road, this is the bit which, really brought about change, and that saw some move from the quarry zoning and little bits of other types of zoning to light industrial, plus protection of, the SEA and refinement of the natural, the volcanic feature, basically, to cut a long story short. So implications-wise, as I said, much of it was industrial already. I don't know if there's much in the way of cost for council of the changes which have been made. Infrastructure-wise, the commissioners considered it, and it was deemed to be able to be serviced, and it didn't seem to be a big issue for this particular plan change, unlike the ones I'm in at the moment, where it's a huge issue, which is the Drury plan changes. But for this one, cost-wise, cost implications for council wasn't a major consideration, really.
Okay, thank you. Member
Thank
Wilson.
you. Sorry, that didn't answer my question. Thank you. Appreciate that coming at this call, but could I just understand too the net financial benefit to council of any rates changes that I would have thought would be captured under this financial implications?
The financial implication statements, I've never seen one go into all that detail. I mean, I just have not seen that on any agenda in the past where we go into a whole raft of financial implications. We're dealing with the financial implications of the process on these, and it's fully recoverable with a private plan change. And that has been the history. John, can you come in here? What has been the history in terms of the financial implications statement on these in the past?
Thank you, Chair. I guess we focus on the financial implications of the decision that we're asking you to make. That's the primary purpose of the financial implications statement, is to assist your decision making with respect to the matter that's before you, which is to make this plan change operative, having gone through its process. So we don't look into rates implications for that decision, because it's not, in our view, relevant to a decision to make a plan change operative or not. So there may or may not be some rates implications, and I guess if there's an increase in rates revenue potentially, then there may also be increased cost to council. It's a financial issue that we just don't tend to look at in the context of plan changes being made operative.
Thank you, and appreciate that I haven't brought this up before. And Mr. Chair, just note in terms of the climate impact statement, we do now introduce a more context-setting statement paragraph, which I really appreciate. So maybe there just needs to be a bit of a think about how we provide a wider context. Even if this is procedural, it's still going to have an impact on Auckland going forward. So kia ora, thank you for that opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Member Wilson, please, your question.
Kia ora, Mr. Chair. I preface it by saying, coming in later as well, I don't consider it in terms of conflict of interest. I am Te Aki Taiwa Aiuho. I note that they are mentioned in the MIS, but my question isn't related to that. It's in a more general sense, and it is around the use of plan changes in the new unitary plan to identify new sites of significance, and it's helpfully been put in the report there in paragraph 64 that was brought out in a hearing that Stonehill would meet the criteria for inclusion as a site of significance. And so if that is the case, what's the consideration now that it has been brought to the fore of the scheduling given this plan change? Is there any consideration in the nature of this plan change that aids looking at one site, namely Stonehill, is my question?
So I'm just want to be clear. You mentioned paragraph 64 of this report, or are you referring? You are referring to the McLaughlin's private plan change. Member Wilson, we've lost you. We don't have audio.
Yes, I am referring to that.
You're referring to. Okay, I've got you now. 64 of the
decision paper. The
decision report. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Craig, with you, please.
Yeah. So I mean, I think the reference there is to, and I believe you're reading out of the decision report from the commissioners. And so it was given some consideration in relation to the scheduling of sites for mana whenua. Miss Andrews suggested, and Miss Andrews being from NZHPT or Heritage New Zealand, should be given some consideration to that site. I can't recall the exact discussion from the commissioners, but I mean, I think paragraph 65 probably captures it. It's submitted that it's for the Mana Funeral Council to request changes to the sites of significance schedule, not the applicant. And so it's particularly of interest to me because of Matt Gouger's work, Matt being in my team, and it's work yet to be progressed, if you like. So, I mean, that's still something that Matt and our plans in places generally are working through in terms of sites of significance. So it just, for the site, we're not quite in that position to do it, and it's reflected in Mark Farnsworth and Greg Hill's Peter Rayburn's decision.
Thank you.
Great. Member Wilson?
Yes. So that's good. But now that it has been discovered through this process and identified, in terms of the Māori Cultural Heritage Program, how can it be best progressed to become part of that program now that it has been identified as suitable?
Well, I mean, I think that's part of the next phase of work that Matt and Co are underway with currently, and there's probably a later discussion to be had with some of the landowners, and perhaps Stonehill will be one of them. But it wasn't in a ready state, if you like, when the commissioners were asked to make a decision on the private plan change application. So there may well still be a discussion to be had with these guys.
Thank
John,
you. Are you there, John?
There, John?
Thank you, Chair. Tanaka, Karen, Member Wilson. We will certainly pick that up with the Māori Heritage team and come back to you directly, and if other members of the committee also want a bit of an update in terms of how we might look at Stonehill in light of that, the decision on this private plan change. So we'll absolutely pick that up with Sherry-Ann and the team and let you know where that sits within the Māori Heritage program.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Wilson. I now have a question from Councillor Dalton. Councillor Dalton, welcome.
Thanks, Chair. Mine's a comment when we get to comments.
Okay, we'll go to comments. Are there any further questions on this? So it's moved and seconded. I'll now go to comments, commencing with Councillor Dalton.
Thank you, Chair. And I just wanted to acknowledge the roles that two local boards played in the hearing in support of Mana Whenua and against some of these changes. So Manurewa Local Board, led by the Chair Joseph Allen and Member Anne Candy, who I understood spoke quite passionately around the history and the heritage of the area around Matukutoreo, and Otara Papatoetoe local boards as well. I look, to the best of my knowledge, the needs weren't met for the request by Mana Whenua to protect this land that has been desecrated already, and I think we could have gone a long way better, in my view, if we were going to really respond. So I won't be supporting this, Chair, for that reason. I think that it is a real, it's hard to continue to see the areas of sites of significance continue to be desecrated. So I will just leave it there. That's my feedback on this particular item. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dalton. Are there other points that members would like to make in speaking to this item? There being none, we will take it to the vote. It is moved and seconded, and that is to make this private plan change 43 operative, and request staff to undertake the usual statutory processes. So I will put that to the vote. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
To the contrary, no.
No.
And if members, if you wish to record, could you let us know now, please?
Yes, please.
Councillor Dalton. Are there any other members?
Me, please.
Me, Tokinare.
Member Henare.
Richard as well. Thank you.
and Councillor Hills.
And FSO.
And Councillor Collins. Thank you. So we've recorded those, and members, that concludes item 8.